am I, sorry? Yes. Let me know when to start. Begin now? Okay. Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So, once again, thank you so much for inviting me to your mosque and to your community. I've been going around Austin with Imam Jawad to several places. This morning we went to a 4-hour paddling trip across Lady Bird Lake, and he got me very tired by the time we were finished. So it's a very lovely community. Thank you. It's a very lovely community, and my time at Austin has been fantastic. What I wanted to do today was just give you an overall conclusion for all the events that have taken place thus far. So the aim of this session is to give you some directions and some general rules so that you understand how to navigate the discussion of Islam and science. Of course, this is not going to be exhaustive. Usually we do a 12-week course on Islam and science, so you have a full perspective on how to navigate some of the thorny issues like evolution or quantum mechanics, AI. But today is going to be a conclusion towards a general idea. If you are a Muslim, how do you understand science? And what I want to do is start off with just going through the previous classes, the previous sessions that we've had. Just take the main points and bring them home to today. Then I want to focus on one particular criticism that is raised by atheism. In the very first session that we did, we had a poster up, Does Science Lead to Atheism? That will be answered today, inshallah, right? And what atheists want you to believe, or would like you to do, is to think that believing in God and science are in contradiction. You can only believe in one or the other. We will analyze if this is true today. Finally, after talking about atheism, I will then highlight two more things that are very important to understand. They're two dangerous ideas, I call them. Once you understand why they're dangerous and why they're problematic, we will then move on to how we as Muslims navigate Islam and science, and what should the Muslim attitude be towards science. That is the plan for today, inshallah. All right? So this will hopefully complement everything that has happened so far. Okay, so in the very first session that we did, we had a brief overview about the history of Islam and science. And the idea behind that was just to show you that Muslims started talking about this very rigorously in the 1980s. And today we have a growing body of scholars and academics, shuyukh as well, who are contributing towards various aspects of Islam and of science. These include topics like evolution, physics, AI, psychology. And this is to show you, inshallah, slowly, there is books and references that you can start reading up on. That was a setup for then looking at how new atheism fits into this picture. Atheism started off as a worldview, as a phenomenon in the early 2000s. And I think most of the older folks will recognize what I'm talking about. After 9/11, when that incident happened, there were 4 people that wrote several books against religious folks. These include people like Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, and all these things. And what made them new in particular, and this was an observation made by many people, is that they were very heavily focused on Islam. And some people ask, why did they become so famous? Because atheism is not a new idea. The idea that God doesn't exist is not a new idea. It's a very, very old idea. So what made it gain attraction? And most people believe it was because of the 9/11 context. When the world was entertaining sentiments that was very anti-Islamic, this is the reason that gave them the market currency. And so when we look at this particular movement, they raise several objections against religious people. They argue things like God doesn't exist, which we reviewed in previous sessions. They argue that science pretty much makes the need for God unnecessary. And that is what I'd like to cover with you today. So that's like the historical flow there. So let's look at and review one basic idea that we looked at previously. And that is, does believing in God undermine or question our ability as Muslims to do science? So just like the last time, I am going to throw questions at you. So and raise your hands. Don't shout out the answer. What do you see on the screen above? Yes. That's not a cup. It is water, but it's not a cup. Yes, the other person. Yeah, what is it called? It starts with a K. A kettle. Very good, very good. Very good. Okay, yeah, you can take your candies here. Well done, very good. So, kettle. This is a kettle. Now, simple yes-no questions, okay? As a scientist, can I study the materials of this kettle? Yes or no? Yes, this is a question for everyone. I can easily study the material of this kettle. Very clear so far. Another question. As a scientist, can I study how the atoms are behaving and how it's heating up? Can I do that as a scientist? Yes or no? Very easy. Yes or no? Easy. Okay. Did any of those explanations contradict the idea that somebody made the kettle? No. Somebody made the kettle, but me doing scientific explanations about this kettle does not contradict it. Does me doing scientific studies of this kettle undermine or contradict the idea that somebody made it for a purpose? No, right? The fact that somebody made it and somebody made it with a purpose is a different explanation than how it works. Everyone following me so far? Okay, very good. Now, when we do science today, when we go to the laboratory, when we do chemical reactions, when we study how things fall, how things fly, all of those are scientific activities. Just because we're doing science, does that mean God doesn't exist? No. The fact that God created the world is a different explanation, and how God is running the world is a different explanation. So if we do science, we're just looking at how God is creating the world, how He's operating the world. Are these contradictory? The fact that God exists and we have a scientific, are these contradictory? No. They're complementary. And so the takeaway point from all of this is, and this should answer that first question that we looked at on the screen, does science lead to atheism? No. The way atheists present science is that you only have one option. Either God did it, or you have the scientific explanation. Do we as Muslims believe this option? No. We believe in both. Atheism says it's God or science. Muslims believe it's God and science. Our belief in God does not undermine our ability to do science. Is that clear to everyone? Everyone okay with that? Alhamdulillah, very good. Brother in the green shirt, you okay? You look very angry and confused. You okay? All right, okay, very good. All right. Now that we've understood that atheism does not, science is not inherently atheistic. There's nothing atheistic about science whatsoever. If anything that we discover through the world and we call it science, naturally it will be a creation of God. And so never ever forget that these are two different kinds of explanations. So, once we've highlighted that, it is important to be aware of two different ideas that are dangerous for Muslims. And the reason why I say they're dangerous is because sometimes they're presented but not made clear. But these are the ideas that are actually being brought forward. The first idea is naturalism. Now, naturalism is an idea, it's a worldview which says that the only things that exist are natural things, like candies, the tea. Do we believe that only natural things exist as Muslims? Who can tell me? Who can know? You can raise your hand. No, very good. What are some of the things that we believe that are not natural? Who can tell me? What are some of the things? Yes? Yeah, you. What are things that are not just natural? Sorry? So electronics would still be classed as natural. We can study it, right? We can see them. We can do experiments on them. What do we believe in Islam that are not necessarily natural things? Yes, brother. Angels. Can we do an experiment for angels? No. There's no experiment for angels. What else do we believe in as Muslims? Yes. The soul, yes. There's an immateriality to us. What else? Huh? Jinns, very good. What else? Another thing? Yep. Jannah, very good. There's no experiment for heaven. Is there an experiment for hellfire? Jahannam? No. There are things that we as Muslims believe that are outside of the natural world. This doesn't mean necessarily we can't do science, it just means we have a bigger worldview. When atheists present science as their only way of understanding the world, it's because they're actually believing in naturalism, that nature is all there is. And that's a very important point to understand. Muslims do not believe nature is all there is. Behind nature are things that are exceeding our realities. And that's why we have to be very careful when people say that nature is all there is. The first question is, how did you know? How can you prove that? They can't. So that's a very important point to be wary of. Muslims do not adopt naturalism. The second thing to be wary of is scientism. Now there's a difference here between science and scientism. So let's start off with the basic idea. What is science? Who can tell me? Let me see you. Yes. Very good. Give me an example. Very good. Very good answer. Very good. That's a scientific activity. What else? Give me other answers. Yes, the kids at the back. Yep. Yeah, of course you. Yeah. Yeah, the black shirt. Yes, yeah. Biology. Very good. Yes. Sorry? Exactly. Science is a study of how things work, right? It's a method. We use different methods to understand the world, right? What do doctors use to understand your body parts? They use, what are the things called when they put in the ear and they check your heart? Stethoscope. Very good. I forgot it. Thank you for reminding me. So, right. A stethoscope, right? If you want to check your temperature, what do you use? You check, yes? A thermometer. If you want to check your blood flow, what do you check? Yep. Go ahead. What do you check? Sorry? A pulse. But what do you use to check the pulse? What is that thingy called? Yes? Huh? Blood pressure. Yeah, let's go with that. A blood pressure monitor. I don't know the technical name, so let's go with that, okay? Sorry? What he said. So, right? That's the answer. That's the answer. Thank you very much, brother. Thank you. So we do all these things to understand the world. So science is a method to understand the world. Some scientists use it in the context of biology. Some scientists use it in the context of rocks, geology, geography. Some scientists use it in the context of physics, forces, waves. All of these are different ways of understanding the world. Now, this is different to what is written here, the second point, scientism. Scientism is the belief that the only things we can know are through science. The only things that we can know are through science. As Muslims, do we believe in that? Is science the only way of understanding the world? No. Because the reason why we don't believe in that is because of the first point that we looked at. We believe there are things beyond the natural world. We believe in God. Can you measure God in a stethoscope or in a microscope or in a telescope? No. Can you look at heaven and hell in a scientific experiment? No, right? And so these two things are the actual beliefs of atheists. They believe that nature is all there is, and the only way you can understand reality is through science. Muslims have a bigger worldview. There are things beyond nature, and there are things beyond science. And so that's a very, very important point to make. Now somebody could say, hang on, are Muslims anti-scientific? You are anti-scientific people. This is where this becomes very important. Muslims support science. We support the idea and the ability to study the natural world. No problem. But Muslims disagree with scientism, the idea that the only thing you can understand about the world is through science. All good? Just a quick show of hands. Everyone okay with that? Very good. Okay, excellent. Yes? Oh, so Scientology is now a very different idea. Scientology is actually a religious group. It's a religious idea, right? So yeah, so whether it came out of this or not is a different story. It is a combination of the two, but it is a totally separate thing. Muslims are definitely not Scientologists. Let me just put it that way. They're definitely not Scientologists. But let's just forget that for now. Yes? Yes, I will get to that. Yeah, I will get to that. Yes. Yes. Yeah. 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 Exactly. So the more we study science, the more we realize that there are complexities in the world. The more things, like for example, subhanAllah, imagine 200 years ago, we didn't, well, let's say 300 years ago, we didn't know there were atoms. We didn't know there were things like bacteria and viruses because the microscope wasn't developed back then, right? Once we realized that, we saw a whole new world under our microscopes. And there are laws that govern those things under our microscopes. We can see even in the cell, there's so much complexity, so much design, right? Where did that all come from? And so naturally, the more you study the world, the more you begin to realize there is intelligence behind the universe. When we do science, we're studying laws, we're studying regularities. Laws and regularities only come from intelligent beings. So if, like for example, if you go, let's say you go to the planet Moon. Sorry, not planet. Let's say you go to the Moon. A moon is pretty much a dead space. All of a sudden, you come across a very sophisticated looking watch. Would you believe me if I told you it was created by chance, just by natural processes? No. You would think an intelligent being, maybe an alien, created it. Now just take that same analogy, look at the universe. Does the universe have laws? Yes. Does the universe have complexity? Yes. What created that complexity? And that's the driving force for us to understand the world better. And there's a beautiful hadith that I'll share at the end. Very good point. Thank you. What's your name? You have a candy. Okay, you can take it at the end. Right, very good. Right, so now that we've kind of understood that science is not inherently atheistic, the question is, if you see a point of conflict, how do you manage it? And there are two questions that I want you to understand. There are things that Muslims believe, and there are things that Muslims do. Okay? These are two different questions. What Muslims believe, what can they believe, and what can they do? In Islamic studies, we have a discipline called Aqidah or theology. Let's just call it Aqidah or theology for now. Okay? Aqidah is the discipline which gives you all the things you need to know as a Muslim. So, as a Muslim, are you supposed to believe in God? Yes or no? Yes. Are you supposed to believe in angels? Yes or no? Yes. Are you supposed to believe in jinn? Yes or no? Yes, right? So all of those are statements of belief. Very good, okay? As a Muslim, are you supposed to pray 5 times a day? Yes. Are you supposed to do fast during Ramadan? Yes. Those are to do with what you do. Everyone clear about the difference? What you believe and what you do. What you do comes from fiqh. That's from fiqh. What you believe comes from aqidah. These are two different questions. Now, when we think of a scientific idea, sometimes you may come across something and you may think to yourself, can I believe this as a Muslim? Yes or no? And this is an aqidah question, a question of theology, okay? Now, there's a very easy way to understand whether you should believe in something or not. Now, this is a question to all of you. Just tell me yes or no. Okay, just say yes or no. As a Muslim, are you required to believe in the periodic table? Is it fard upon you? Is it wajib upon you to believe in the periodic table? No. For example, so what I mean by is it obligatory? On the Day of Judgment, will Allah ask you, did you believe in the periodic table? No, not required to. Are you required to deny the periodic table? Yes or no? No. It is something that is neutral. Islam does not either force you to believe it, neither does it require you to deny it. That means it is a neutral thing. That means you can believe it personally, no problem whatsoever. But it is not something that you are theologically required to do. Let me give you another question. Let me give you another one, right? Dinosaurs. Are Muslims supposed to believe in dinosaurs? Yes or no? No, it's not part of our creed. Are Muslims required to deny dinosaurs? No. So whether you believe it or not, does it have any impact for you in the akhirah, in the hereafter? No. It's not a moment of creed. So this is a very important point, right? Now, when you come across a new scientific idea and people say this contradicts Islam or this is a problem for Islam, you have to ask two questions. Okay, these are two questions you need to ask. The first question is, can Allah do it? Can Allah create this thing that which we believe is a problem for us? Let me give you a simple example. Everyone here know the multiverse? Everyone know what the multiverse is? So the multiverse is a very simple idea. So everything that you see in this universe, all the stars, all the planets, everything, black holes, everything, this is one universe. And this universe started with the Big Bang. The multiverse is an idea. There are universes outside of this. Okay, there are universes outside of this. That's called the multiverse. So the question is, now some people may think this contradicts Islam. So let's test whether this contradicts Islam or not. The first question, which you see on the list, can Allah create a multiverse? Yes or no? Could He create it? Yes or no? Very easily. He has infinite power. So He can create it, no problem. So when an atheist says the multiverse contradicts your idea of God, what do you say? No, it doesn't. Everyone okay with that so far? Can Allah do it? Yes or no? That's the first question. The second question is this scientific idea contradicting anything in the Quran or Hadith? That's the second question, right? So once you've understood this scientific idea is not atheistic. Okay, khalas. I know that Allah can do it. Now I want to see if it contradicts anything in my scripture. And our scripture is Quran and Hadith. In the Quran, does Allah anywhere tell you to believe in the multiverse? No. There's no discussion of multiverse in the Quran. Does the Quran or Hadith tell you you should reject the multiverse? No. That means there's no contradiction with the Quran. So can you believe in the multiverse, guys? Yes or no? Yes. Very good. And all of a sudden, you can now understand whether a scientific idea fits with your worldview or not. Let's do another simple example, another simple one. Let's look at a simple one. Periodic table. We reviewed it, but let's look at it again. Can Allah create the world which is based off of the periodic table? Yes or no? Yes. Is there anything in the Quran that contradicts the idea of a periodic table? No. So can you believe it? Yes. Very good. Right? One more. Quantum mechanics. Yes. Just let me finish this and then we'll go into Q&A inshallah, right? So quantum mechanics. Everyone here knows quantum mechanics? Hands up if you don't know. Hands up if you don't know what quantum mechanics. Okay. So quantum mechanics is a theory. So we believe that things are made out of matter. Matter are made out of atoms. What's below the atoms? What is below the atoms? Sorry? What are atoms made out of? There's three things. Electrons, protons, neutrons, mashallah. And then you can break them down even further. You know, bosons, quarks, all these kinds of things. As you get smaller and smaller and smaller, that area of our universe begins to be very crazy. It's it doesn't make sense to us. Things are popping in and out of existence. Electrons pop here, 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 here. It doesn't look like the world like we see. It's a very counterintuitive world. Now the question is, can we believe in quantum mechanics? Yes or no? Can God create a universe with quantum mechanics in it? Yes or no? Yes. Is there anything in the Quran that contradicts quantum mechanics? No. Can you believe quantum mechanics as Muslims? Yes. Straightforward. So when it comes to assessing whether you can believe in something or not, you must just ask these two questions. Can God create it? Does it contradict anything in the Quran and Hadith? Now, sometimes you may struggle. These are general rules. I'm giving you very general rules. Sometimes you may be unsure. So that's why we speak to our imams and sheikhs. That's where they come in if we get stuck, right? Sometimes we can ask them and of course you get their advice and guidance. But these are general rules. So this is to do with your belief. Let's look at to do with your actions, what you can do, all right? Now, this area is to do with fiqh, right? Fiqh is what you are allowed to do and not do, right? Yes? Yeah, this is the guidelines of what Muslims are supposed to do, what they're not supposed to do, and things we are trying to figure out, right? So, Give me something that Muslims are supposed to do. What are Muslims supposed to do? Give me one example. Yes. Sorry? Pray to Allah. Yeah? Did you say pray to Allah? Salah. Yeah, prayer. So we are supposed to have prayer. What are we not supposed to do as Muslims? Yes, in the red shirt. Very good. We're not supposed to eat pork. Those are clear cut, okay? So those are very, very easy things to understand. Now, in science, we sometimes come across new things that we have never come across before. So give me an invention or something, an advancement in medicine, which we have never seen 1,000 years ago, for example. Give me one example. Who can tell me? There are a lot of new developments. Yes? Sorry? Okay, Advil. That's generally medicine. Think of something a bit more. Yes? Sorry? Very good. Organ transplantation. That's a big one. One of my friends from Cardiff University in the UK, Dr. Mansour Ali. He's a sheikh, mashallah, and he's also an academic. And he is writing the world's, I think, first book on organ transplantation with a very, very, very detailed perspective. So organ transplantation has two parts to it. The first question is, can we give our organs after we pass away to somebody else so they can use them? So I can say relax, okay, relax, right? And the question is, can we receive organs, right? Can we receive organs? And there's a further complication here. Can we only give and receive with Muslims or also non-Muslims as well? Here, this is where fiqh comes in. This is where fiqh comes in. And fiqh is very, very technical. It can get very, very technical. That's why it requires years of training to become a mufti. The mufti is the person responsible for determining whether something is legible or not. And once you present a scientific idea, whether you can use it or not, it is only one of 5 options that come into play. And these are the 5. Sometimes the option is it is obligatory on you. So for example, let's say that a person is dying and they need a surgery. In that case, they need to have that surgery to survive. That would be obligatory for them, right? There's a second degree, it's recommended. If you do it, it's great, but it's not obligatory upon you. Then there are things that are neutral, that have no matter. There are things that are makruh, that are, you won't get, bad sins if you do it, but it's not recommended either. And then things that you should avoid. How do ulama and how do muftis reach these conclusions is beyond the scope of this conversation. But this is the reason why we have bodies like Amja, Imam Jawad. Is it Amja? Yeah, like Amja. These are national bodies in which you have ulama, senior ulama, sitting together to discuss what is and isn't permissible for you to do, right? And so we have different madhabs in this situation, right? That's sometimes you'll notice, sometimes people put their hands here, sometimes put their hand here. It's because there are 4 schools of thought in Islam. And so that's the reason why ulama have these conversations to make it as clear as possible. On some occasions, on some scientific ideas, there's a clear consensus. On sometimes, some people say yes, some people say no. So there's a number of options. For example, let me see who understands. There was a big invention in the past 10 years regarding money, digital money. It starts with C. Who can tell me? Okay. Yes, the one in the blue shirt. Yes, you. Yeah. Cryptocurrency. Now, when cryptocurrency first came out, when it first came out, most people were either silent on this issue because they wanted to understand what it was, or they said it's haram from the beginning. And usually, ulama or scholars, they generally say haram in the beginning, just because they want you to be on the safe side. Because if there's something inherently problematic, you rather avoid the evil than, fall into evil. That's the reason why, right? And so, but now over time, like you even had a discussion, I think yesterday with an expert, right? Now we have some interesting maturity about this. Some ulama say it's fine within limits. Some people say no, it's not fine. And so with these things, there's usually a time period through which these discussions occur, and you get conclusions out of this. And like I said, to become a mufti, takes several years of training. And that's why it's not always easy to determine when you have a new scientific idea. I mentioned in the first session the idea of ectogenesis. Ectogenesis is when you have a baby outside of the mother. So you take one of the things from the father, one of the things from the mother, you put it in a bag, and this bag is linked to a machine. And over 9 months, the machine feeds nutrients and you see the baby grow. Is that haram? Is that halal? So these are not always easy questions to have. But what I wanted to make sure you were aware of, that there's a distinction between what you can believe, which is based on these two questions, and what you can do. On both occasions, sometimes the answer is crystal clear, sometimes the answer is not. And that's why you should always consult your shuyukh, your scholars. Is everyone clear about the navigation part now? So, now the question is, what is the Muslim attitude generally? How do we as Muslims approach science? The first thing is, make sure you avoid the extremes. We are a nation of moderation. We are always in the middle. Do Muslims adopt scientism? Let's see who's paying attention. Do Muslims adopt scientism? No. What is scientism? Very good. Excellent. The only way to know the world is through science. Muslims are not advocates of scientism. The other extreme is Muslims start rejecting science. Do Muslims reject science? No. Very good. Muslims have no problem with doing science, right? We adopt science as a method, and that is it. And more importantly, coming back to Brother Hashim, was that your name? Hashim, right? Hisham. So we actually use science to understand God. And there's a very beautiful hadith that I'll end this session with, which for me really impacts the way I look at the world, right? So this hadith says, تَفَكَّرُوا فِي الْخَلْقِ, yani think about the creation. وَلَا تَتَفَكَّرُوا فِي الْخَالِقِ, but do not reflect upon the essence of the Creator, right? فَإِنَّهُ لَا يُدْرَكُ إِلَّا بِتَصْدِيقِهِ. Verily, His essence cannot be known. Now let me explain this hadith before somebody gets confused. Allah, the God that we know, is Allah infinite or finite? He's infinite, right? He's an absolutely infinite being. We, as human beings, are we infinite or finite? We're finite. Can you ever put an infinite being in a finite mind? No. You will always reach certain limits. And that's the reason why, if you think too deeply about the infinite, you can sometimes get confused. And the hadith is encouraging us to understand Him through the world. And this is the reason why science is encouraged from our religion. It is encouraged. There's more things that we can say about this. For example, even in the Sharia, in Islamic law, we have a difference between fard ayn and fard kifaya. Does anyone know the difference? What's the difference between fard ayn and kifaya? Who can tell me? No one can tell me? Yes? Very good. So fard ayn is something each person should know, right? Each of you should know you have to pray. Each of you should know how to do wudu. That is something you should know as an individual. Fard kifaya is, let's just call it a collective obligation. Okay? A collective obligation. There are things that we should be doing collectively, and if we don't do them, the entire community falls under sin. For example, if we have a society and there is no doctor, it is sinful upon the community because there's no doctor to take care of diseases. Being a doctor is important because it helps you with your health, and if you have a healthy body, then you can complete your obligations, right? So, and I imagine, do we only need doctors? No. We need other things as well. We need engineers. We need people in politics. We need people in the sciences. We need people in automobile. All these things are part of the community. If all of this were to stop, Muslims would be sinful. So Islam is just not encouraging you. It actually requires you to do scientific activity for the collective good. With that, I'll end my presentation. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'll take on any questions you have. Barakallah feek. Thank you. I hope that clarified everything for you in terms of how we as Muslims navigate Islam and science.
So Dr. Shoaib, before we take the first question from the audience, I want you to please tell us about the conference that you were attending, which actually brought you to the U.S. in the first place this time, and how you were telling me about the Christian community in the area of science and religion, and your work, and where is the rest of the Muslim world there?
Okay, so okay, I am a university professor, and as a university professor, we have three things that we do. We teach, we do research, and then we do administrative stuff, like making sure the students are fine, we tutor students, all those kinds of things, right? So these are administrative stuff. In the research side, my area lies in the intersection of Islam and science. I publish in this area, I write books, I write articles in this field. At the moment, there are only maybe 4 or 5 people as Muslims who are writing about Islam science actively, who are giving them 100%. From the Christian side, there are hundreds. Christians have universities that have been dedicated to this field. They have master level programs, they have PhD programs. Muslims are way, way far off in terms of the development of this field. And what brought me to the US was, there was a conference on science and religion. So what happens is when there's a conference, the conference organizers say, we have a conference. If you are interested, please submit your research to us. We will assess. If it's good, we will accept you. If not, you'll be rejected. This conference, I think, had about 200 people. Only 20 people were accepted. And I was the only Muslim there. The only Muslim. This was in San Diego, right? So I was in San Diego before I came here. And the reason why I am researching Islam and science, because there's hardly any people doing this. And we need people working in this area because there are going to be new inquiries that are going to challenge us more than before. Before, it was the whole scientific miracles in the Quran. Do you remember all of that came up? Then we had evolution. Evolution is a huge problem for some people. We've had, Muslims even, leave faith because of it. Now I feel the next concern is AI. You remember ChatGPT? Do you guys know ChatGPT? Right? So ChatGPT is very interesting. ChatGPT is an artificial intelligence. It has a lot of knowledge. Now, some people may not be convinced it's smart. It has aql. But this is the worst technology that we're seeing. This thing is going to get better and better and better. Right now in Saudi Arabia, in Mecca, they are already using AI bots to answer fatwa to pilgrims. This is already in Saudi Arabia happening. People are already instrumentalizing AI bots in universities to help. In the world's largest tutoring service is Khan Academy. Khan Academy is implementing AI to help you tailor to your needs, right? So this thing is going to get better and better and better. Now, there was a very funny AI app. It was called Hadith GPT. Have you guys heard of Hadith GPT? This came out in about February, and the reaction of the ulama was, for me, it was very interesting, but also very funny. It was closed down in 3 days. Because ulama around the world said, this needs to close down now. Why was it problematic? So what happened was, this, I think it was a Bangladeshi brother, he did it as part of his master's postgraduate project. And what he did was, we have 6 primary hadith books. As Sunni Muslims, we have 6 hadith books, Bukhari, Muslim, and so on and so on. He put all of these hadith books in the architecture of ChatGPT. And so whatever you ask, it could give you a fatwa. It could give you a response, right? Is eating pork haram? Yes. Is praying wajib on you? Yes. It was, on some occasions it was right. On other occasions it was giving very interesting answers, which because it didn't have all the rules. So for example, somebody asked it. So let me actually give you some context. Eating pork, haram or halal in Islam? Haram, right? Now there's another rule that if you find something die naturally in the sea, you can eat it. This is just a basic rule. Yeah, that's why we can eat fish. We can eat fish directly. So somebody asked Hadith GPT, if I find pork naturally in the sea, can I eat it? It said yes. So it couldn't work out that this is a problem. Now here we see some basic mistakes, and right now it's not a threat. It's not a threat to us. But this could be a threat in maybe 5-10 years from now. So the kind of things that I'm thinking are the following. Imagine an artificial intelligence that is fully proficient in Arabic. Right now I can speak to you in Arabic. If you type, it's 95% accurate in Arabic. Imagine something that is fully proficient in classical Arabic, has mined all the hadith books, all the fiqh books, and eventually it'll become the super mufti. You can ask it any question. Now the problem is, at the wrong hands, it can be used to deliver problematic results. So we're talking about politics now. How do we deal with the situation? And here, there's another point here. The average person, when they want to go and find information, they go to Sheikh Google, right? They go to Sheikh Google right now. The average Muslim, when they have a machine in front of the AI, this knows everything, and it finds answers and fatwa, then he will think, this is a machine, it's infinite, it's very powerful. Why should I trust a human being who's only studied for 7 years? I trust the machine now. Do you see the kind of problems that are going to come out? So these things are going to require new fields of research. People who can speak the language of AI, but also the fiqh of things. And so that's why I am personally invested in Islam and science, and that's what I do as a living. This is what I'm happily doing for the sake of the ummah. This is for me my khidmah to the ummah. That's what I see at the very least. So that's in response to your question, Brother Jawad.
Jazakallah khair. I think that what you're doing is no less than fard kifaya, that if the entire Muslim ummah is kind of sleeping on this issue and you are there, we really appreciate the service that you're doing. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you and make you successful in that endeavor and raise others that can also be there, inshallah, to support you. We have a question from the sister.
Assalamu alaikum, jazakallah khair. I have two. I have a clarification that I want you to clarify. Maybe I didn't understand it well. So for the slide that talked about the scientism.
Yes.
My problem is, like, away from Islam and all what you shared, I understand it, I get it. This is the problem from a scientific perspective.
Yeah.
How is scientism acceptable by scientists?
Right, okay. So scientism is a personal worldview, right? It's not something that's shared across the board. So for example, when I do an experiment, an acid-base reaction, let's say I put an acid, I put a base, and I do my calculations. The atheist is doing the exact same thing. There's no difference in what we're doing. We do the same procedure, we calculate the same data, we get the same result. Where the difference lies is that person believes science is the only way of knowing the world. So if it's not scientific, they're not going to believe in it. If they cannot prove God through science, God doesn't exist. The Muslim believes in that. That's the difference. So it's not something that you will see in terms of science as a body. This comes down to individual scientists.
Okay, but this is my point, is that obviously from you sharing it and bringing it up, it gives me the aspect that it's something accepted in a very large, right, to the point that you need to respond to it, or it's not, you're just telling us,
right,
be
no,
aware.
Okay, that's actually a very good question. So what I'm articulating is that in some areas, you are going to encounter professors if you go on to university, or if you speak to scientists who are on a podium. They do not distinguish between science and scientism. For them, scientism is science, because they believe science is all there is and nature is all there is. So they don't make that distinction explicit. And when they don't make it explicit, the young Muslim thinks, wow, maybe I should adopt scientism. And that's the reason why I'm bringing this up, is because you will find professors, maybe around 50% of the professors, they adopt this worldview. So it's not just like Richard Dawkins and that's it. This is a movement that is all across. In the US, you'll find this in the UK, you'll find this even in the Muslim states. People are genuinely think like this. And so you should at least be aware, is this person advocating scientism or science? And having that distinction is crucial.
Okay, because, the other point that I wanted to say is that within scientism, within regular science, the concept of thinking of a theory of something not necessarily that exists to prove it, it's, I feel, subhanAllah, that's what you use to prove within the reflection of a tafakkur to get to the Khaliq, which is part of the basic ways of what they do all their scientific research on. So I feel there's something contradicting within the whole concept, But I get your clarification. Can I ask my question, the last part? Is regarding the jurisprudence part of how the fuqaha used to, in the past, put the haram, halal, and how you put mandub and all of that. There's something that always comes in my mind is that in the past, the fuqaha were able to set the right things of to do and to don't without, I don't know if it was like always a way of them to also consult the people of knowledge within that field or not. I feel in this time and age, we really need that even more because there's so much subspecialties. Yani the fuqaha, is it part of their general big picture that I need someone in medicine who exactly explains the details, then we can come and give an answer of halal and haram. Without that, you're actually not going to be able to give the right answer to people, right? And I don't know if this something was already done in the past in the A'imma al-Arba'a and it was known, or was it not needed? I wanted to hear like if you have any more knowledge in that area. Jazakallah khair.
Do you know Zakir Naik? Everyone here Zakir Naik? So Zakir Naik says something all the time when somebody asks a question. The brother has asked a very good question. The sister has and I am trying to avoid saying it all the time. But the sister has asked a really good question. So I'm going to answer this historically. There's a word called colonization, which I assume some people may not know what that may mean. So let me explain that. Colonization is the term given to when Western territories, US, Europe, when they invaded Muslim worlds, took over them politically, socially, economically, and influenced their ways of life onto the Muslim world, okay? The Muslim world did go through colonization. There's a lot of history about this, okay? There's a lot of history about this. Do check it out. Around 300 years ago, the ulama, Yeah, everywhere. Malaysia, yeah, I completely, yeah, I agree with you. Not just, I didn't make it exhaustive. You're 100% right. All over the world. No doubt about it whatsoever. Around 300 years ago, up to 300 years ago, right? There was a clear understanding of the role of the ulama as the centers of knowledge and being able to adjudicate, create understanding of what is and isn't allowed, because they were the centers of knowledge. What happened was, with colonization, the colonizers implemented their own schools. That's why, for example, if you go to Egypt or Morocco, why do they speak French? Because of French colonization. In India and Pakistan, you have British, very old institutions, and that was the British colonizers. What happened was, when these schools were impregnated and implemented, a division started occurring between the madrasa and the school and the university. And this division was because families started realizing that in order for our kids to get a job, we have to give them the best knowledge. Where is the best knowledge? In the schools of the colonizers. And so we began to see a divide between the, what I like to call the Western institutions and the ulama. And what we're seeing now is finally integration happening again. We have ulama who are trained in their fiqh, but they don't know some of the stuff on this side. We have people here who know this stuff, but they have no information on this side. But a few people now are crossing over. They're learning how to do both. And this is where, now coming to your question, previously, yes, they were able to do this very easily. But because of the impact of colonization, it has structurally affected how well this crossbreeding can occur. Now, we live in a hyper-specialized world today. You can become an expert on just the ear today. Forget the whole body, just the ear. Very hyper-specialized. And so naturally, the people of expertise in these, scientific domains need to be now in contact with the ulama so that that crossbreeding can occur. And this is what we're seeing. This is exactly what we're seeing today. We have people in universities who are working with ulama. And we have also academics who are doing the Alamiya program so that they can know how to do this. And we have also people in the Alamiya program who are becoming professional academics. This is happening today. We're seeing this today. And inshallah, the hope is that in the next 10, 15 years, you will have the medical expert who knows his fiqh inside out. You will have the AI expert who knows his fiqh inside out. But this is still a process. And what we're doing is now we're investing in the people to get into that stage. I hope that answered your question. It was a long answer, but I hope that answered your question. Barakallahu feek, yeah. Bajuan?
Assalamualaikum, Dr.
Can you
Yes. Sorry, Dr. Malik, thank you very much for coming here and sharing your thoughts about this. So I actually have a comment on the previous slide, this one, yes.
Yeah.
So basically, what I see from this slide is that you are saying that any scientific idea that is put forth in front of us, we are essentially evaluating it in terms of religious merits, not on its own scientific merits. Generally speaking, when the scientific community brings about an idea, right, whether or not there is consensus, it always has merits and demerits. But what you're proposing here, you're actually saying that rather than measuring that theory on its scientific merits and demerits, we should go forward with these two questions. And I personally believe that this is kind of very insincere effort if somebody is actually truly invested in scientific method. Scientific method is actually what science actually is. Right? So can you explain like how these two tenets that you have proposed, go in line with measuring a scientific theory on its own scientific merits and demerits?
Very awesome question. Very good. So measuring the scientific efficacy or measuring how good a scientific theory is, my job as a scientist is to see whether the data checks out with my hypothesis or with the theory and the consensus of the community. That's one question. And I'm being paid as a scientist to do that, no problem. But the question is whether I as a Muslim can accept it is a different question altogether. And these are two different things. What I am simply saying is that when people say something conflicts with Islam, these are independent questions. Because this could be very weak, this could be very strong, and you measure it according to its scientific apparatus, right? Quantum mechanics has 6 interpretations right now. 6 interpretations, right? But that's me as a scientist, okay, I understand there's 6 theories. But regardless of the 6, can I accept them, yes or no? This is where my theology kicks in. And so all I'm saying is that when conflicts arise, why do conflicts arise? Is because we need to understand that we have a scientific theory, which is one thing, but we also have our theology which measures and checks for us what we can and cannot believe. That's what it's trying to do. And generally, our theology is scientifically neutral in a lot of cases. All I'm trying to show is that these two questions can help you preserve your faith and can also help you challenge when atheists claim this disproves your God or this disproves your religion. That's what I'm trying to do. Sure. Go ahead. Yeah. Yes, yeah.
That what does not make sense is that asking the question that does science leads to atheism is a purely redundant, irrelevant question, because now we have established that these two things, they don't intercept, they don't interconnect.
What doesn't intersect?
Scientific method and theology.
Yeah, okay.
They are two independent, different domains.
Yes.
Right? Once we have established this, then what doesn't make sense is that asking this question, does science lead to atheism? Because atheism, atheism is about theology, right? Whether God does not exist.
I agree
it's a
with
theological statement, right?
Yeah.
Science, on the other hand, deals with empirical evidence, right?
Yeah.
If you can prove something or disprove something. Science does not deals with the realm of transcendent, right? Yeah. So basically then the original thesis that you presented on last Friday was that does scientific inquiry leads to atheism? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And that's the reason why I believe that the whole New Atheism project was just a marketing project for atheism. For me, these are two very...
Then answering this question is futile. Like, why are we even answering this question?
So the reason why we're asking this question...
why are we asking this question and why are we answering this question?
Yeah, so why are we asking this question is... So there are some people like you, mashallah, who can see this is totally a useless point here. But what has happened is, due to sociological reasons, some people have made it their agenda to use science to undermine religion. This is their agenda. And this is something that cannot be denied. This is something that happened in 2006 and onwards. Many Muslims lost their faith. And so what I want to show is that the difference between atheism and theism is not a scientific difference. It is a worldview or a theological difference, exactly as you put it. On the scientific front, me and the atheists are exactly the same. When the atheist does the microscope experiment, or if I as a Muslim do we get the same data. We assess the same data, we assess the same thing. But where the difference comes is in the worldview. Atheists, new atheists say, no, it's not the worldview, it's the science. This is what I'm simply countering.
Okay. Then this should be, you should be more upfront about it, because this was not something very apparent from the talk.
Sure, okay.
These two things were,
Sure, I get that, yeah. So with the atheism stuff we did yesterday, this was just a shortened version of that. But I take your point. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Who's the question from? Yes.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Shoaib. Thank you for coming us and giving us the opportunity and listening. I have two questions. First of all, you mentioned in your lecture that there's some group of scholars or group of people that they have, they're working on some type of responding questions. So how do the common people, these are open forums or open links? How do common people to have a knowledge of getting in touch with those, number one. Number two.
Can I answer one by one because I will forget? So a lot of these conversations happen in academic ivory towers, right? So conferences, universities, these are the kinds of avenues these take place. There's a general problem, not just with Muslims. There's a general problem is these academic conversations, how do they trickle down to the society? That marketing issue is still being looked at in terms of how do you make things accessible. So one way, it's not the only way, is that we have some people who are really good at places like YouTube, through which they interview academics to make their ideas accessible. One avenue of this is an individual called Paul Williams. He has a YouTube channel called Blogging Theology. He interviews academics all around the world, but in very simple language, such that if you've never even heard of the topic, you can understand it, you can follow it through. This is one way of combating this issue. The other way of combating this issue is the production of material. But the problem there is that this material is usually written for other academics, not the wider society. So that's why there are now efforts being made where we are translating these, and when I mean we, I mean the community, not necessarily me, just the community in this space, where we're translating these for the K-12 curriculum, right? So there's, for example, a very lovely brother, Dr. Asim Padela. He's at Medical Wisconsin College. He recently got about a $800,000 grant to write the first, I would say, K-12 materials on 6 interfaces between Islamic theology and biosciences, Islam and evolution, Islam and AI, all of these things, right? And so, inshallah, in maybe 2 years' time from now, those materials will be accessible. And so that can then circulate from the ground up. So there are efforts, these are acknowledged problems, but there's not enough manpower at the moment, and there's not enough resources to do this. But attempts are being made to get these down. Now, you can contact these people. These people have these email addresses on their website. So Dr. Asim Padela, if you go to Medical Wisconsin College, you'll find his email. Most of the people that sometimes I just find them and I send them an email. So they are accessible. Whether they're free or not is a different question.
Oh, thank you. And I think the second question is also in continuation, because most of the challenges are for our younger generations that they went into the colleges and the schools, and they face during some of a very bright, intelligent, non-Islamic, students, and they challenge them, and that's how. So that's my question was how to get, I would say, communication is the key for our next generation. I think you mentioned the efforts are working, but it will take some time. But definitely, it's a valuable resource that I got to know through Imam Jawad. So I appreciate your coming down and giving some opening for at least I can communicate to other folks which I know. But that was my question.
So So we have theologians, all right? Theologians who are interested in these science-related conversations. We have scientists who are interested in these science-related conversations. We also have experts in pedagogy, the expertise on how to teach. One of the world's experts in Islamic curriculums is Dr. Shaza. She's actually in here in Austin. She's a wonderful person. She has an international name. She's the executive manager of the Islamic Schools League of America, right? And so she is responsible for developing curriculum that can be used in our high schools that can give students those tools, those contents, those techniques to be able to articulate themselves with confidence, right? That is not an overnight project because there are many challenges. There is, first of all, the syllabus challenge. What do you include? What do you exclude? And how much do you put Islamic content without sacrificing the other sciences, right? That's one thing. Then there are infrastructural issues. How much money are we pouring into these? Then there's the human resource issue. Do we have the right people? Myself and Imam Jawad and we had a chat with Dr. Shaza just the other day. She herself mentioned that unfortunately, and this is based on a world expert, so I'm relying on her account, that sometimes our Islamic schools are failing the kids. She even said quite explicitly to us that we sometimes hear stories of people leaving Islam, though they have been in Islamic school. So something is going wrong. There's something immediately wrong. And what are those problems? It's the fact that we sometimes have lack of qualified teachers. That's one thing. We don't have the right infrastructure, so we spend, and this is not a criticism to anyone. We invest in beautiful mosques, but not in beautiful people. And so there's a short-sightedness. Buildings are not the only part of the solution, they are a part of the solution. And so we need to think very long-term, and we need to make those decisions soon and fast. Otherwise, there'll be an accelerated growth. So there's a book that came out, just yesterday it came out, one second, it was a book, I cannot remember the name. So this is the most intensive study that came out, by sociologists of religion. They make it very clear that across the world, secularism has gone up, religiosity has gone down. And they highlight Beyond Doubt, that's the one. Yeah, Beyond Doubt. Just came out literally a couple of days ago. Beyond Doubt. And their thesis is, this is not something you can ignore now. It is there. And these are non-Muslim sociologists talking about on every religious strand. So there's something that we're not doing right. There's something that we're not doing right. And one of the key things is education. That for me is the key. I think that we have lost priority of that. We're not investing enough in people, and that's causing a huge problem with regards to our kids who are suffering as a result of that. That's my personal observation, but we can have a further discussion about that later on. Okay, inshallah, yeah.
Just a quick comment about the لا يدرك إلا بتصديقه, the hadith that you put here. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was saying, قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَانْظُرُوا كَيْفَ بَدَأَ الْخَلْقِ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like commanding us that we go and explore the world and we just be open-minded.
Yeah.
The reason that I'm saying that because I feel that one of the, like a continuation for the brother's question about how can we integrate the idea of religion with science. I think the first step that we need to do is that we appreciate the science. right? And not being judgmental. So one of the names that also give like all of us like goosebumps, Darwin, right? Darwin actually, he walked in the earth and he made mistakes, but he did good things, right? So when we tell the kids that, okay, that Darwin is bad, he had bad intention, he wanted to disprove the existence of God, I think that will put the barrier between us and our kids and how we can integrate the idea of religion and science together. So that's what I want to say.
Oh, Barakallah Feek. Thank you very much. I share that sentiment. I share those sentiments.
That's the conversation we were having on the lake today, right?
Yeah. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. So yeah, thank you very much, Brother Sham. I fully agree with that we start off with, most of our kids are used to science and they are in theology. And as a result, there is a sense in which we can use that as a starting point. But how do you package that? This is where Aqeedah